This is E&P Reports, a vodcast from editor and publisher. Since 1884, the authoritative voice of news publishing. And this episode sponsored by IQ Audience Plus by Town News. Consumer revenue has never been more important. Digital leaders at media organizations worldwide understand the need to accelerate its growth now. Plus, traditional one-size-fits-all paywalls aren't the answer. They're blunt instruments that treat all visitors the same way. IQ Audience Plus is a smart, dynamic metering solution that empowers media companies to maximize revenue by identifying key audiences, seeding engagement, and growing membership and subscriptions. Supercharge your consumer revenue, grow engagement, and bolster your advertising income now with IQ Audience Plus. Visit townnews.com EP today to learn more. And warm greetings once again. I'm Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P. If you're listening to the audio version of E&P Reports on your favorite podcast channel, please follow us right now. If you're watching the video version on our YouTube channel, right below the screen is a subscribe button. Directly to the right is a bell. Smash that, and we'll get you an update each and every time we upload a new episode of E&P Reports. H.R. 7640, the Local Journalism Sustainability Act, was introduced in Congress a little over a year ago with a concept that is amazing. Imagine offering a tax credit to someone in a local community who subscribes to local journalism, a tax credit to the business that supports that local journalistic entity by buying advertising, and of course supporting that publisher by giving them a tax credit for the journalists they employ. And the benefit to our communities is mind-boggling because research does show that by having a local journalistic entity embedded in a community, the community thrives better, taxes are lower, voter registration goes up. Now, the bill has momentum now. It's in both the House and the Senate, and the next 5 weeks are critical in making sure this bill passes Congress. So to give us more information, let's go to the two founders that helped make this bill start. Francis Wick, President and CEO of Wick Communications, along with Alan Fisco, President of the Seattle Times Company. And we're also going to invite Dean Ridings to join our conversation. He's CEO of America's Newspapers, who's become a driving force in getting newspapers all over North America to support this bill. So let's talk Local Journalism Sustainability Act with this episode of E&P Reports. Well, greetings once again, gentlemen. This is our, I think this is the third time that E&P has invested this platform into the Local Journalism Sustainability Act. Francis, you and I first chatted about it in its infancy, and then we brought in, of course, Alan and Dean, and that was a few months back, but there's new news to report now. So before we get into that, what I'd like to do is just again go through the background of the act. Dean, do you want to just run down again what the Local Journalism Sustainability Act is and why it's so critical right now for the industry?
Sure. And Mike, thanks for setting this up. We appreciate the great job you're doing. So the Local Journalism Sustainability Act is a bill that really would help newspapers and local journalism in general. I think it's a fantastic bill, provides support through three different programs. First is a local newspaper subscription credit. So as a consumer, if I subscribe to my local newspaper, I can deduct up to $250 off my taxes. Second, it's a local newspaper journalist compensation credit. That's a 5-year credit of up to $25,000 in the first year and up to $15,000 in the subsequent 4 years. So that's direct contribution to your payroll of your newsroom. It's a great way to support local journalism. And third, it's a local newspaper and local media advertising credit designed for small businesses. So for any business in your community, up to 50 employees, they can take advantage of advertising in the local newspaper or the local TV station, the local radio station, and they can get up to $5,000 in tax credits. So these three tenets form the stool that we think are great in that they provide a bridge to helping newspapers as we continue our transition to a more digital future. So it's not a permanent handout by any stretch. It's a temporary solution, and we think this will address the issues.
And the issues being, correct me if I'm wrong, let me go to Francis on this. The issues being that there are many, if I may use the term, news deserts now, where smaller communities have lost the local paper, the fixture of the towns. In some cases, the archives of the history of the community has basically just gone out of business. And people see the need to stop this whatever you want to call this transition or this change that has happened for a myriad of reasons. Francis?
Yeah, so that's accurate, Mike. There has been a proliferation of news deserts throughout this country. It's been well documented, both studied through academic settings and, quite frankly, felt locally in communities across this country. And it's not just the news deserts, it's the economics behind the legacy model that has become so constrained and has impacted the number of journalists that have been able to be employed. And what we're really looking at here is, as information is being disseminated in so many various ways, the goal of professional journalism and somebody really vetting the issues on a local level, whether that be school board, asking questions to the police chief, attending city council meetings, looking at the budgets of what's going on with your county. That's the type of oversight that we're starting to lose, and it's becoming very perilous for us. And so this effort helps to address that type of oversight and allows us to recognize that our newsrooms can stay whole as we continue to build a new foundation of a business model moving forward.
Francis, your company obviously works in a lot of, you're WIC Communications. You're not a major market newspaper. You're working in a lot of these small communities and trying to keep those brands alive. But Alan, if I may address you, you're in Seattle, right? I mean, you're talking about a major city. What do you say to people in your town that say you're just trying to take government money to keep your business going when maybe it's time for someone else to take the reins? How would you address any negative feedback someone would get to this bill?
Yeah, I would say multiple things. One is that the economics of the newspaper industry, regardless of who owns it, has been turned upside down, clearly. And with the pandemic, it just accelerated the advertising challenges that everybody has been facing. And two, it's also not a level playing field in the digital advertising side of the house as well with Google and Facebook. They just had phenomenal earnings reported, I think it was yesterday. And so, it's not an issue of the ownership, it's the issue of the industry. And this is really going to help the industry as we transition into that new business model that Francis and Dean talked about, is that, the digital future. Clearly that's here. Clearly that's our future. We need a little bit of runway, and this helps give us that runway.
Dean, your organization is called America's Newspapers. When other organizations have dropped the word paper, I don't want to just get into the lengthy list, and changed it. You've proudly kept that name for now what I think is the largest newspaper trade organization in North America. Though for those that don't know, you are two large organizations, Inland Press and SNPA, Southern Newspaper Publishers Association, that merged just about 2 years ago. What do you say about the need for newspapers, and I'm using that one part of the legacy world, to have to survive? What is the real, are we just that final check on truth to power, or is it more than that?
It is more than that, Mike. I think it's critical component of our democracy. If you look at America's newspapers across small towns and large cities in our country, there are no other organizations that have the reporters, the feet on the street, covering the local communities like newspapers. And of course, I wish that newspapers even had more staff to do that, and this bill will address that. But there's no other organizations across the country that does that. When you look at cities that have lost their newspaper, you see a direct correlation with increases in taxes. Typically, there's mismanagement in your local government, because we all do better when we have someone paying attention, and newspapers do that. They cover their communities from city hall to the school board to local sports. And as part of a community, you want that. You want to know what's going on in your community. You need to know. So it's critically important. And I want to address your earlier comment about the term newspaper. It is a newspaper. I read my newspaper, the Dallas Morning News, on my iPhone half the time, maybe 2/3 of the time, but it's still a newspaper. I think people know what that means, and I'm not afraid of that term. It makes sense. Newspapers cover their communities, and we're proud to be America's newspapers.
Hey, if I could just jump in,
yes, sir,
just
Howard.
for a second. Was doing a prospectus for a project that we're working on and found some interesting statistics that Pew Research released in June of this year. Newsroom employment has dropped 43% in the last decade for newspapers, and we lost 4,000 newsroom jobs last year alone. The other thing too, kind of dovetailing on what Dean has said, is this UNC Hussman School of Journalism did a really detailed study last year, and they said that according to several estimates, as much as 85% of the news that feeds our democracy, quote, originates with newspapers. That's one of the reasons that we stuck with newspapers for America's newspapers, and it's one of the main drivers for why we need this legislation. We're working so hard to get it through.
We're actually chasing a story at E&P about research, if I may add my 2 cents, that communities with a local newspaper have a better voter turnout as well. And that's interesting because it motivates people. I mean, it's nothing, what do I always say? The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. Even if someone's angry, it's good to make them angry sometimes about certain issues so they can go out and make a statement. Francis, I want to get to what I found most surprising about this that started, if I may quote you from a long time ago when we started this, covering this, you called it a Jerry Maguire moment. You got up one morning on a Saturday, started writing this white paper, and then you shared it with Alan, right? That's why the two of you, but you shared it with a Republican or a Democrat in your state. Where did it start? Who was your local representative in Arizona that you shared the idea with when you put
So it originated, before I answer that, it did originate quite frankly with a number of people giving me some feedback along the way, specifically Dean, Alan, others. I'd reached out to some state associations, and eventually I realized that if we were going to try to build some momentum, I had to get policymakers involved personally. And I went to my local representative, Representative Kirkpatrick in Southern Arizona, and struck up some conversations with her staff. They took it very seriously, and over about a 2 to 3 conversation period, they realized this was much bigger than their own district, and that was something that they wanted to get behind.
And just for those that are not politically,
this was a critical moment.
Kirkpatrick is which side of the aisle does Kirkpatrick?
She's a Democrat, right? And then, but their staff told me if we were going to move forward with this, when they indicated they would support a bill, I had to go out and source a Republican. And because of our operation in Wenatchee, other relationships in Washington State, i.e. Alan and Frank Lethen over at the Seattle Times, and Roland Thompson, others that were helping out, we were able to get in front of Representative Newhouse, and he took serious consideration into it. He told us what he wasn't comfortable with, and he stood up and said, I will get behind this effort.
So Alan,
and he's an R.
Yeah, correct. I was about to say. So this was bipartisan, which I find fascinating. I mean, even though there's a lot of debate about truth in journalism, and sometimes people do claim that, Dean, you don't deny it, people think the most of media is left wing, right? I mean, it's a perception. I don't think it's true. There's a lot of right wing media. I happen to know of an alternative news weekly in Arkansas that leans right. I mean, you can be in a lot of different places, but this was truly bipartisan. Am I correct, Alan? When you brought this to your R said, yeah, it's good to have a local paper still there as part of our checks and balances, sir?
Yeah, I mean, this supports newspapers across the country, whether they lean liberal or conservative. We have 37 co-sponsors as of this morning, and 10 of them are Republicans. So we've got some really strong bipartisan support here in the House.
Dean, what were you going to add there? I saw you.
The same thing. It's, we're seeing a lot of support from both sides of the aisle. It is not a partisan issue. I had a phone call with a Republican senator last week who's very interested in the bill. He's very interested in protecting his local journalism. He thinks it's important. So I think whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you understand the value that a newspaper brings to your community, and you understand that your community is worse off if it's not around.
Francis, name a town that WIC has a property in that would make you lose sleep if they were to lose that local paper. Just bring it home to a local community where the paper is just thriving and keeping that community together. If
Fergus Falls, Minnesota, Pierre, South Dakota, Wahpeton, North Dakota, New Iberia, Louisiana, Safford, Arizona, Nogales, Arizona, Wenatchee, Washington, Wasilla, Alaska. I mean, you can go down the list, and that's some of WIC properties, but there are hundreds of operations that do phenomenal journalism that need support right now. And Mike, I think what I really want to add to this conversation that's important for people to understand throughout our industry, and speaking to the audience that you serve, is that this legislation has not only built a significant and broad coalition of key stakeholders, whether for-profit news organizations to nonprofit news organizations, but all of the stakeholders in between. So we have guilds, we have vendors, we have everyone across the board supporting this effort. And it really is not a partisan effort. This is an American effort. This is an effort around accessing information. And I want to acknowledge not only the phenomenal work that Dean at America's Newspapers has been doing, including a plethora of other key associates along this line, but I don't think we really understood, at least I didn't, the groundwork that Frank Blethen and Alan Fisco and the Seattle Times had been building on legislative and lobbying efforts and communication up to this point. Quite frankly, I kind of was able to sail this legislation off of the hard work that they had been creating for many years, and I was unaware of it. And so I think it says a lot about the key the key stakeholders and people who are vested in wanting to see the free press succeed. And it's something I've been very proud to watch.
Dean, I wanted to give you kudos because before I did this interview with you guys, I went on Google News and I just typed in Local Journalism Sustainability Act. And there is, if I may use your term, Francis, but I will put a modifier, a veritable plethora of unbelievable local articles now from, I mean, I don't know what you did, Dean. Did you put up a bat signal or something? But just about every local newsroom now. And my favorite was in Pierre, South Dakota. See, I can pronounce that town correctly because I was there. But in Pierre, they actually had their rep, Dusty Johnson, in the newsroom with a picture, and he's fighting it a little. He's saying, well, how will we police it? And they just kept hammering him with good questions, and his picture's on the front page of the paper. This is it's more than just picking up the phone. Am I right, Alan? And calling it's talking it up, getting your local readers to understand the importance of this. Who wants to field that? But that to me sounds, Dean?
I'd love to take that one. You know, I'd love to brag about, we do have the best members. They are so engaged in our organization. They understand the stakes are high and that they need to personally act. They are doing their own local stories. We create editorials and send out to our members. They run those. We have editorial. In fact, we have a new editorial cartoon coming out today. The members are running these. They're also contacting their legislators. You know, it's working, but it's working because the members are engaged. And that makes, you know, I probably have the best job in the country.
And you got a good editorial cartoonist. We use them at EMP as well.
Yes.
Kudos to Rob Torno. The guy is brilliant. Alan, what do you want to add to that as well?
I will only add that, you know, I think one of the learns that we got in Seattle from trying to get pension legislation passed over the last 5 years, which we were successful in getting. And one of the learns that I think I'm seeing with some of the America's newspaper members is it's really important to have relationships with your legislators. And so they know who you are when you pick up the phone or when you request a meeting, and you're not introducing yourself at the same time. And that is just absolutely huge. Those relationships You're not always going to agree, and they're not always going to agree with us, and we're not always going to agree with them, but you do it respectfully and you try to build those relationships because those are critical when you need something like this.
Francis, are you putting pressure on your publishers, or are they stepping up to the plate on their own at WIC? Or, I mean, what kind of participation are you seeing in some of the smaller markets that you guys work in? Where as they're
putting pressure is an interesting term. I would say we're cooperating in how we're going to how we're approaching this topic. And we're talking about it. I thought the peer example is one that we really got excited about. Not all representatives are going to get behind this, and that's okay. But it's about bringing forth information and letting people know what is occurring. And I want to add to Alan's point here, because if there's a huge takeaway that I think has been a confidence builder for this industry that has been beaten down for the last decade and a half nearly, is that we still have tremendous influence and power. And collectively, we can bring good to the table and make sure that we're doing our jobs and our roles in a very healthy manner and thoughtful manner. And I think that's what the Local Journalism Sustainability Act at the crux has really helped encourage many publishers around this country, that they can go back out and establish these relationships, and they're going to get called back. And the public information officer of local lawmakers, whether that be in the Senate or in the House, they want to get behind this. They're like, wow, this makes sense. I want to be able to pick up the phone and talk to the editor of the local newspaper. And so there's a lot that's coming out of this effort collectively. And, Dean gets a lot of that credit in America's newspapers and how they're bringing all of the key stakeholders together like this. Steve Waldman is another one. Mm-hmm. He has to get a ton of credit. He's been phenomenal in the way he's approached this in his coalition. Our friend Zach Richner. I mean, there's so many that have gotten on the bandwagon and really promoted this effort, and it's been something beautiful to behold.
And we got to keep in mind, and that this is a time right now where there is more appetite for credible local news from the readership than ever in the history. I mean, I hate to say that the crisis of COVID had a benefit, but in some ways it woke up local community. And we keep publishing studies at E&P that even though the cable news networks will be out there, in their echo chambers, people want local news now. They crave local journalism, and we're there to serve them. And this is a good time to introduce this bill while the local readers want us to exist as well. Dean, what is going on currently with numbers? The bill is in both the House and the Senate now, correct?
Yes, it is. It was introduced in the Senate just last week. So the House bill is HR 3940 and the Senate bill is 2434. If you go to newspapers.org/LJSA, you'll find all things related to the both bills. We track any new co-sponsors. We have talking points, editorials. So anything you want to know, please go there and take a look. Newspapers.org/LJSA. That's what, and we'll have a link to that as well in the E&P page. Alan, if you were to make a plea to other publishers right now, what advice would you give them to get behind this at this moment? What should they be doing instantly?
I think instantly they should be reaching out to all of their legislative members and talking about the need, talking about the benefits from this bill, and asking them to support it.
Francis, what timeline are we looking at? And I know it's hard to predict Congress right now and how things will come through. If things keep moving forward, what reality do you think we have? When could this become real and part of our world?
That's a great question, Mike. I'm not the best suited to answer that question, but I will say, I want to just add to Alan's request that when you go and speak to your representatives, you ask them to become a sponsor, not just support, but we want them to sponsor these efforts, both in the House and in the Senate. This is gaining incredible traction. And it's not just because of the impacts of the pandemic, Mike, but also because people are waking up to the fact that there's so much misinformation out on social media today. And one way to combat that is to ensure that we have a healthy professional journalism ecosystem that can help to dilute all of that misinformation that's out there.
Right.
The more the professional journalism goes away, the larger misinformation becomes. I mean, the timing is really significant in how we can go after this and get support from our lawmakers in trying to ensure that we have healthy, robust newsrooms as we transform our business model.
Dean, do you have an answer to the timeline question, or at least a crystal ball?
No crystal ball, but the direction and the headwinds are great. But we are seeing such support. Senator Schumer a couple of days ago made very positive comments about his support. So we're seeing a lot of encouraging things take place here. From a timeline, I think the next 3 months is really critical that our members reach out now to their legislators.
I think we lost Dean for a second there. I'm not sure why, sir, but I'm sure it was a poignant, that last sentence you were saying.
I will add just one quick thing, Mike. I think there's a great opportunity. There's going to be a recess next week for the next 5 weeks or so, where all the legislators are going to be home. This is a great time to really make those connections and ask them to co-sponsor the bills.
Now is the time to bug the bejesus of them as they're doing their town halls and they're back in their local office.
Right.
This is the time. And keep in mind, guys, I'm talking now to our audience. The number one issue that everybody's screaming about now is audience revenue, reader revenue, subscription revenue. Imagine that if a human being in your market gets a $250 annual credit for the first year of subscribing to your newspaper, what that can do to fund your newsroom. And imagine how that would impact every small town, every large city in the United States to support local journalism. Dean, are you back? I see you nodding your head.
Yes, yeah, and I just wanted to address the time issue. I think that we will see things move in the next 3 months. I think that is a critical time, but it is most important that our members contact their legislators now. And particularly when they're home on recess, that's a time to reach out. But whether they're in Washington or in the hometown, reach out to them, let them know you appreciate what they're doing and that you need their support of the LJSA.
All right, Dean, what is your email address if anybody wants to get more information directly from the association?
Sure. dridings@newspapers.org. So DRIDINGS @newspapers.org.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for your valuable time today. E&P obviously is going to stay on top of this. We'll be offering links to any and all information that's out there. And this is a good, Alan, I love what you said. Good timing, right? They're coming home for 5 weeks and right in your backyard, right, Alan?
That's exactly right.
This is a good time to do it. Francis, you stay healthy and well, and we'll stay on top of this. Everyone have a great day, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for your support, Mike.